Hey comic book fans, welcome back to another episode of Comic Book Geezers. I am Wild Bill the Unknown Comic and like to keep it that way. And the founding father of the show who called me one day and said, hey, I want to do a YouTube show about comic books. Would you like to co-host it with me? And I was like, oh, all right. Here is the founding father, everybody, Pete Pardo.
What's going on, everybody? How you doing? And happy holidays to everybody. It is holiday week here, and we figured a month. Yeah, really. When you think, no, it's true. When you think about it, from Thanksgiving till New Year's Eve, it's basically a holiday time, especially here in the States. And we generally every year we like to bring you lots of content relating to like Halloween and spooky stuff and monsters and things like that. But we kind of ignore like Christmas and that sort of thing. So
Not this time.
Not this time. So we decided we got a couple episodes for you in a row of specific comics, older comics that have to do with stuff going on around the holidays. So the first one you're going to get today, and there's a little history behind this one. I'll show it first, then I'll tell the history. So this is Lukecage, Hero for Hire, number 7, 1972. No, it can't happen, Luke says. Merry Christmas, world. And goodbye.
Push the button.
Push the button. So the button of Armageddon, right? So,
which is total wood.
Total wood, right?
Total
yes,
wood.
absolutely.
We don't want Armageddon.
Tell him, Luke, right? So this, and some of you who've been following us for a long time have heard the story before, but not this actual issue here, because I had to rebuy this, but this particular Lukecage issue, number 7, was the first comic I ever bought with my own money. I bought it on the stands in 1972. I was 6 years old, and I had comics before, but they were all kind of hand-me-downs. So you remember the story, my grandparents, my mother's parents, lived in the Lower East Side in New York City, in Manhattan, and in a co-op, and at the apartment across the hall was a little old lady named Mrs. Weber. Now, Mrs. Weber's son was grown up at the time, but he had collected comics, and basically just left his comics with her and whatever. So
she would give them to you.
So my grandmother would take my brother and I over to Mrs. Weber's apartment every now and then when we would go visit her to have, lunch or just to sit and chit-chat, and she would give us candy. And one day she said to me, she goes, oh, how old are you? You're like, I was like 4 or something at the time. And she goes, do you like comic books? And I'm like, I never read a comic book. She goes, well, here's a couple of them.
Spider-Man.
It's Spider-Man fighting the Kingpin, right? Captain America and the Hulk, Captain America 111. I mean, these crazy, expensive issues, right?
Back then they were
nothing, right? So she was just looking to get rid of these, right? So she would, every time I would go over there, she'd give me 1 or 2 comics, and I completely fell in love. Well, fast forward, a year and a half, 2 years later, and I was again over at my grandparents' house, and my grandfather said, let's go downstairs. You go, hey, Peter, let's go downstairs to the newsstand, go get the newspapers, right? That's how my grandfather talked. And I'd be like, oh, do they have comic books down there, Grandpa? I don't know. I need to go take a look. I go, yeah, they got comic books. So I was like, and I had like 50 cents on me or whatever, because I was getting like a little bit of an allowance, right? So I go down there and I look, and they do have comics right by the magazines and newspapers. And I had no idea who Lukecage, Hero for Hire was.
Just like the cover.
I just thought the cover was really cool, and yes, it was around the holidays. So I said, all right, look at this. It's Merry Christmas, world, blah blah. So I bought this, and that began my comic book buying life, and also my kind of love affair with this character. I really like Lukecage quite a bit. So anyway, so that's the little story behind there. So as you can see, covered by Billy Graham. All right, I will be careful with this because this is an old one. So this is called Jingle Bombs. Not Jingle Bombs.
I have this issue, but
yeah,
Jingle Bombs. Steve
Englehart, author. George Tuscan, Billy Graham, the arts. John Costanza, not related to George. Letterer, Dave Hunt, colorist, and Roy Thomas, the editor. So here we got basically, if you remember the early issues of Lukecage, he is dating Claire, who works in the clinic. He befriends a guy, a doctor, who kind of helped him get out of prison, and he's one of the guys who helped get him, put the strong serum in him, whatever. So they're sitting there at the clinic, and it's Christmas Eve, and they notice outside the window some old dude is beating up a kid. So of course Luke sees that, and he's like, we got to go out and stop that. So he runs outside. Claire, start rolling bandages for you in the doc. Be some bruising coming up, right? I love his dialogue. And out there, this old guy who almost looks like Scrooge saying, "Mock your elders, will you churl? I'll improve your manners for you." And Luke says, "And I'll improve your face by changing where your nose grows, darling. Unhand me, footpad. I have every right." Call someone footpad. pad.
Foot pad.
Yeah, so there you have it. So, of course...
Unhand me, Dr. Scholl.
Right. So Luke goes and whacks him, but he notices that it doesn't really do much good. The guy turns around. He's got this, like, thick cane. He turns around and he nails Luke with it, and then he realizes that it didn't do any good because, of course, Luke's skin is,
like steel.
Steel. And then Luke goes and throws a punch, breaks the thing in half, right? But then the guy just starts, fighting with him, whatever. But he decides that Luke is too much for him. So he says, what does he say here? He goes, enough, good sir, I yield. Dynamite, now sing. Sing? He goes, what's happening here? What are you doing? Oh, why, the young ruffian attempted to hoodwink me when I purchased a newspaper from him. He demanded 15 cents. And he goes, that's the fare, fancy dancer. Nonsense. Never paid more than 2 cents in my life. Huh? Who are you, Jack? My name is Marley. I'm a dealer in chains. Now, if we have nothing further to discuss, I have an appointment with my partner, and he's very stingy with his time. I trust you'll excuse me, Mr. Cage. And Luke says to himself, this cat's like bad peanut brittle, all nuts. But it is Christmas Eve, right? As he walks back, he grabs the kid who's hurt back into the clinic, and basically the old guy says to himself, I'll have to see more of you, Cage, before the city dies. So something's going on there, and if you notice, he kind of looks like the guy on the cover, right? So obviously a little foreshadowing there. So they go inside, they take care of the kid, right? And then the doc tells Luke that some guys are coming over to ask him questions about, what happened back in the prison when he escaped. And he goes, you can't have these guys coming over. It gets too close to me, Luke is saying.
Yeah.
So, so Dr. Fox, Phil Fox, whatever. But so he goes out with Claire. They're going to go for a night on the town, right? So they go walking around in the snow and throwing snowballs at each other, do a little smooching and whatnot, right? Because, it's Christmas Eve. And then, of course, the cop shows up and he goes, what are you guys doing there? Oh, okay, whatever. So then they see, like, a homeless guy, and he's sitting there on, like, it looks like he's got no legs on, like, a little sled. He's asking for money.
Come on, man.
Yeah, exactly. He claims that he's a Vietnam vet, right, and whatnot. So they go to give him some money. And then he, like, starts seeing and hearing things. So he pulls out a gun on Luke, starts firing. Of course, the bullets bounce right off Luke. He goes and says, what the hell are you doing with that thing? Grabs the gun, grabs the guy, throttles him, and then he takes the gun. And of course, I love this little panel right here. There you got Luke just crushing it up, right? So then him and Claire walk away. He goes, take this. You need to get out of here. You could have killed someone, right? So then, of course, the guy lights up a cigarette and he goes, nice speech, Cage. It's definitely lucky I ran into you back at the clinic. You're the one man who might make me give up my plan, but I'll have to check you out one more time, I think. So it's the same guy, right? So the same guy. And then, of course, he gets up and walks away. So he's
almost like a probe to see how Luke would react.
Right. So he's taking out all these identities and just making sure he runs into Luke. So Luke and Claire go off to the bar. They're hanging out. Apparently, they close the place. So then they go to walk home, right? And, of course, then another guy comes jumping out.
Look at his arm.
Yeah. So the guy comes jumping out. He's got a gun. Again, kind of looks the same. Yeah,
got a knife in his hand over here.
It's actually a gun. It's like a laser gun. He says.
See, that is.
Yeah, it looks like a knife, but I think it's just the way he's kind of holding it. Yeah. So then Luke attacks him, right? Because the guy's saying he's gonna shoot him over, but the guy proves to be pretty formidable. So they go into this whole fight here, and the guy says, "I'm gonna shoot my laser gun at you." And Luke's thinking, "Well, I know my skin can bounce bullets off, but I'm not so sure about lasers. I don't know about lasers, right?
Probably cut me."
So again. They start fighting it out in the alley, right? Luke just tosses them all over the place, and the guy says to him, he calls him a churl. I have no idea what you're talking about. You'll die for assaulting a sergeant, soldier. Right? So again, he's saying a lot. And here's I remember when being a kid looking at this panel here and thinking, I think they fucked up here. So right here, they show the bad guy, and he says, "Cat's schizo, coming unglued while I watch." And the thought bubble is pointing to the guy, but that's actually Luke saying that.
Yeah.
So they kind of screwed up there. That's at the top here. All right. So then the guy's like,
here, right?
Yeah, it's right there.
That panel.
Exactly. So he goes, it's freaked, but he's all three guys, right? So then the guy comes out from the corner, attacks Luke, and starts wailing on Luke, and he's doing pretty good. So the guy's got some kind of power going on, but Luke is he's not hurting Luke. So he hits him with one punch and almost knocks him out, and the guy's like, retreat. So he goes running off. Luke goes running after him, right? They go climbing over a fence. Boom, 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 boom. Lots of
action.
Lots of action going on. And in the
Here
end,
come the cops.
Here come the cops, right? Because the next door neighbors
blaring.
called. They heard all this disturbance. Luke comes out of this little, looks like warehouse or something like that, and he's got the guy all beat up and everything. He hands him over to the cops, right? But then, so there's Claire once again. So they go to continue to try and walk home. They're never going to get home at this rate. And then they see the cop car pulled over somewhere with the sirens going. They go and look, and they're the same two cops that he gave the bad guy to, and they're all like, "Oh my God, he overtook us. He was in the back seat. He got away." So then Luke is like, "All right, Claire, go home. I'm gonna go take care of this." So he goes. He follows the footprints. He goes to another place. We don't really know where that place is. Is it an alley? I don't know. But there's a Santa Claus. Guy dressed in a Santa Claus outfit who was probably doing the Salvation Army, collection. And he's all tied up, right? So he goes to go let him loose and talk to him. And then, of course, Santa Claus clocks him over the head with something. And then here he is. Now Luke is somewhere else in some office somewhere.
With an executioner.
With an executioner-looking guy. He's all tied up in chains. And the executioner guy is talking about how it's the same guy. He's talking about how he followed him all these places.
Gotcha, Luke.
He basically says, "I disguised myself to prove my theory. And lo and behold, there you were, a concerned citizen. But after all, you were only facing a cane. Would you be so helpful against a gun? I impersonated a present-day soldier to find out. But to my surprise, you neither ran nor sought revenge on me. When I started shooting, you did what you had to do and then showed compassion." So he feels some kind of weird kinship with him, but he's letting him know that I'm going to blow up the world. So he basically says that he came across a atomic bomb. How this guy got an atomic bomb, we have no idea, right? So he pushes a button, and opens up this part of the wall where this giant computer is. And he says when he pushes this button, the atomic bomb will blow up the world.
This takes place in New York City, right?
New York City, yes.
So there's a good chance. I'm going to speculate here that he found the atomic bomb at West Point because they've got one on display in their museum.
Yeah.
But it's probably a dud. It's probably not loaded.
But he says here, he goes, "From the Army, like I said, it was early 46. After the war was over, everybody was loose, relaxed, security was close to non-existent, so I stole it."
They're heavy as hell.
Yeah. Give me a break.
They needed... Right? It was the first one was shipped on a USS Indianapolis.
Yeah.
And then it was
his guy's holding it in his hands, right?
Right. And it's flown by a B-29. So how can he just pick one up?
I have no idea. So he goes, "Now I see no hope left for the world. That's why I love the past." So he's all about the past. He goes, "The world is shit, so we're just going to destroy it. So the present is intolerable, the future nightmarish. So I've rebuilt the bomb here in Manhattan. I'll destroy this rotten planet." So basically, he's got this little gizmo. He's going to get rid of his remote. His little remote, right? And then all of a sudden, as he's talking, they see by the chimney, it appears someone's coming down the chimney. So he turns his attention to the chimney and goes, "What's going
Santa?
on?" I must be. Santa Claus. And then as he's doing that, Luke breaks free. He grabs the guy, rips the cowl over his face, and notices that it's the same guy, basically, although he's, I guess...
In another disguise.
Yeah, the mustache was fake, obviously. So he goes and, whips his ass, destroys the computer, destroys the bomb, and then coming down the chimney falls this little guy. He's actually a burglar. And he was scoping out this guy's house for a long time. So he was going to come. He didn't think anybody was going to be home. So he was going to come down the chimney and steal some stuff. And now he's like all crying. I'm really sorry. But, I'm kind of hard up and blah, blah, blah. And Luke basically says, I'm not going to turn you in because you didn't actually do anything. We just saved the world. So that's it. So the world hasn't changed one bit. So Merry Christmas, everybody. You get to live. No atomic bomb.
And the cat burglar doesn't go to jail.
And the cat burglar doesn't go to jail, right?
He just breaking an entry. That's okay.
And hopefully Luke gets to go home to Claire at some point in time after this long, ridiculous evening there, right? So yeah.
There you have it. Pete's first comic. Off the rack.
And it's a holiday one. So issue number
it's
7.
Refurbished, a new...
Yeah.
It's the second copy.
The other one was in horrible condition.
Because it's been read a million times.
So, yeah. So there you have it, everybody. George Tuska, Billy Graham, drawn little gem here from the early days of Luke Cage, Hero for Hire, before he became Power Man. And thanks for watching.
Now it's up to you guys to click the like button, please, if you like this video. That'll help us out tremendously. And share this video with your friends if they don't know about comic book geezers. As always,
like that.
We thank you for being here. We thank you for your comments. We thank you for your support by showing us with your subscriptions. Thank you so much. And as always, please click the notification bell so you can be kept in a loop every time we have a new video. And keep coming back for more comics from Comic Book Geezers. We'll see you next time. Real soon.
Take care, everybody. Pete Pardo for Wild Bill. Have a good one. Happy holidays, everybody.
Yes.
Take
Bye.
care.